Louisville, and Eric with YPAL is going with Talk Association. Talk, Technology Association of Louisville, Kentucky. You can't hear me, I'm starting to lose my voice, so bear with me. Just want to give a couple of remarks. One, tonight, if you want to ask any questions while the discussion is going on, by all means, tweet it, and it will pop up here. Just use hashtag YPAL. And then our moderator will kind of feed off that and kind of bring up questions, firing from the hips, essentially. Also, want to recognize Big Free Ball for sponsoring this entire series. Obviously, it wouldn't be possible without their support. So, Joe, if you want to say a quick words, by all means.
Thanks, Eric. Like I said, my name is Joe Vegas, and I am an attorney with Big Free Ball. We are a full-service business law firm to help businesses in our region. So we have offices in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. That's it for now. But I'm an intellectual property attorney, so I'm particularly interested in the topics that have been discussed here. And this is, as you said, the final event in the series, but they have been fantastic so far. And I want to thank YPAL and Paul for allowing us to sponsor and be a part of this event. Like I said, they've been fantastic, and I know tonight will be just as good. And should you all need any assistance, legal assistance, please think of us.
Great, thank you. Also want to thank P10. Well, we don't think we have representatives from P10 in the room tonight, but they are a sponsor for the next 3 meetings of Talk, including this one. And I want to just point out that if you would take a look at talkblue.com, on our website, we have our next 2 events. And I'll pass out a few flyers here. One is the e-commerce cluster, so if you're interested in building an e-commerce site and looking for support around that, we're going to have a meeting November 14th at 5:30. We'll be at the Bernheim Mansion on 3rd Street if you haven't been in that facility either. And then we also have our holiday party. December 17th is going to be at the Fine Arts Firm, which is on in the Clay Building. You haven't visited that. It's a wonderful facility. You have a chance to buy some art. We may have some raffle items as well. We have for dinner and wine and different things stuff. We already have a speaker from Boston, search and data mining expert, Dr. Sue Feldman. She'll be out directly from New York called We Can't Search. So I definitely invite you to those 2 events. I do want to mention that if you have a relationship with a high schooler, I am also involved with the Home Affairs Council. And there is an event called the Academic World Quest, which you may be interested in. Take if you have a child or someone that's interested in high school ages, we can apply and take that. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth to get our panel interviews. Really appreciate you coming out tonight.
All right, thank you, John. And hello to all of you. This has been a terrific series here with the 5 parts. I've been able to meet some of them, not all of them, unfortunately. For those of you who don't know me, I'm with Crystal Ventures, which is a local venture capital firm focusing on the early stage venture investing in technology and healthcare. I spend a lot of my time lately on healthcare technology and education technology of that nature. I wanted to give panelists a chance to introduce themselves, partly because there are so many of you. And we don't need to spend the whole night listening to me necessarily, but I'm interested to hear, sort of your own role within your company as well as sort of your company, focusing on, are you a technologist or a manager? What is your company sort of in terms of in the tech space? How do you think about placing it at sort of the end of this series of technology sessions?
My name is John Ross. With Mirazon, we founded Mirazon in 2000, so we're a local consulting company, IT consulting. We do infrastructure work, really focusing on Microsoft infrastructure, VMware and Hyper-V, Microsoft virtualization type solutions, as well as storage. And what I do is I'm the managing partner. Helped found the business 13 years ago. What that means, though, is basically I don't get out much. I deal with a lot of financial pieces. But one thing I do that I think will be applicable here is I'm in charge of professional development for engineering teams. So I get to see a lot of what's required from those individuals.
department in Metro government to figure out what it is that they do, how well they're doing it, and how they can do it better. And that involves a lot of work in terms of looking at the data that city government has, and working with both our CIO, our Chief Information Officer, and the people within her department to try and figure out how can we help departments answer these questions. We need to have the right talent and the right capabilities within Metro government, and so we also do a lot of skill and capability building on the back end, so that departments and employees can access the data that they have within their systems themselves, analyze that data, and make smart decisions based off of it. And so, like I said, we're working with the talent party within Metro government. We're working to develop that talent further, and then we're also looking to hire more folks in that space. And other cities are moving in this direction as well, not just with chief performance officers, but with chief technology officers, chief data officers. And so I'm really interested to hear sort of how the conversation progresses today.
My name is Steve Huey. I am a co-founder and currently the CEO of Capture Higher Ed. And universities pay us to help them find students, and we do it by first analyzing the successful students on their campus, creating profiles, going and searching vast databases of potential students, namely the ACT, SAT, and NARCUA databases, finding a select number of students and pending probably 80 data points to it, and then entering into a almost one-to-one marketing dialogue with them to convince. And my whole success at my company is based on convincing 17-year-olds to go to a certain college. So it's a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Aaron Ganny. I'm with Humana. You've probably heard of us. We're obviously...
Do you have that building down the street?
Yeah, it's a little big building down the street. I've been with Humana about 7 years after being gone from Louisville for 15, but I grew up here, U of L, and actually live in E-Town, not Louisville. Anyway, what we are, you probably think of us as an insurance company, which we are. We're also expanding out into a lot of healthcare delivery. So we've been acquiring primary care physician practices. We do in-home care. We have a pharmacy business. We have a range of healthcare delivery capabilities, and we're working on something we call integrated care delivery, which is when you go out and experience the healthcare system, that every physician or pharmacist or anybody who interacts with you has a common view of your medical records, right? Which is a good goal, and the whole country needs to go there. What I do in my job at Humana is lead all the IT folks that work in that healthcare delivery, healthcare services side of the business.
What I'm hoping to do today is to have a pretty open Q&A. I have some questions brought in here already. I am hoping to get more from you. What is the key, what's the hashtag by which questions tweeted at your marketing? Is it hashtag YPAL?
Hashtag YPAL, hashtag YPAL Louisville.
Okay. Please keep the questions coming. I mean, we'll definitely go to sort of raise your hand Q&A in a few minutes. But I do not intend to sort of have this be, I want this to be very interactive because this is actually an excellent group that I want to learn more from with everyone's questions. So one set of questions that I think would be interesting to pursue is you've all made decisions, or your companies have all made decisions to stay and grow in Louisville. What are the types of technology needs that you have? How are you doing with satisfying them in Louisville? Has that gotten better? Where are you specifically looking to find the people? And with an aim towards how can we help you do that? But first, I'd like to just sort of understand sort of what types of people you need. And you can go in any order. I don't mean to break down this.
So over the doorway of our office used to be a sign that said Island of Misfit Toys. And so we looked for people that would never fit in with your organization.
And what is the misfits?
I trust me, I was there I was recruiting. So, no, but we're looking for the people that just don't fit in a normal office environment, and we're trying to give them a home. And we want really smart people that are, let's say, really smart people that are self-motivated, don't need training, and will work for nothing. So if you know
I need
any
them
of
also.
us, I know that's,
We'll have a program
there are
that sounds
abundant
like-
out there, right?
Are there particular technologies that you're looking for, or is the cultural fit more important?
Cultural fit's very important. It's 50-50. Technology skills are people that are used to working with big reams of data. The application part of it, showing the data to our constituents is something that is not tough. It's figuring out the answers behind the scenes. And so I was just talking to Dell, and he has a whole master's program in data science and data mining. So I'm going to go down and talk to him next.
I had an exact same conversation with Devin from our office, who was here just 2 weeks ago, and then we were sitting down and we're talking about, who would be a good fit for a company like ours, and he asked the question, is the technology more important or is it the culture? I think overwhelmingly for us it's the culture, because by and large, a lot of people that come from somewhat of a technology background, they already have the aptitude to learn, and technology is never a static thing. What you know today is completely outdated and irrelevant tomorrow. But if you're afraid to keep learning the stuff, if you're afraid to keep adapting the new technologies and kind of driving it out, it's a very difficult place in companies like yours, ours, to kind of fit in and continue to do well. But on the other hand, if it's somebody that says, I'm coded for this, I can do it, it's something else, but I'm really more interested in learning what's coming out, that really works quite a bit, because I can tell you, every single person that we have in our office was hired for one thing, but is doing something completely different over the course of as short as maybe 3 months. They come in, their job letter, offer letter says you're going to be doing X, but they're doing something totally different. And by and large, the people that are very successful always say, "Oh God, I'm not doing that because that sounds so boring. I'm so glad I'm trying something completely different." So you could be hiring somebody to do project management or a .NET project, but the next thing you know, they're running an entire support services program. Or they're in a completely different area. They're looking at a virtualization kind of platform, and they're thinking even getting certification. So I think that, overwhelmingly is much more important. And we're seeing a lot of that. And unfortunately, not to keep picking on you, we kind of find it a little difficult when, you work with people that come from these organizations that are very well defined in their structure of, how IT work gets done. It's very hard for people to kind of break out of that mold and say, okay, I'm going to look at this completely differently and throw away all the old rules. So I think trying to connect people at a certain point in their career development seems to be an important part for us in our recruitment process.
I would say in city government, the challenge for us is that most people with any sort of background or interest in moving into a tech or data space don't really think of city government as really groundbreaking, exciting technology work. And I think that is something I want to challenge here. We really are trying to push the envelope. A lot of cities are. We just partnered with Code for America, which is a fantastic organization that sort of like a Teach for America for Geeks is how they brand themselves. And they take folks from Google and from Apple and from Microsoft and all over the world really, and get them to commit a year of service to a city government and then put them in different cities. And we had 3 fellows working with us just last year. And it was amazing to see when you take them out of the construct of their company and put them into city government and don't really give them the confines of an IT department or anything along those lines, but say, here are the challenges, here's the data that we have, how can you help us do more with what we have, what sort of technology or applications would you develop, how would you help us better connect with citizens and with our community, and how would you help us better collaborate with the community around us. There's a lot of really exciting things that have been developed in a very short amount of time, and I think the challenge for us is communicating that for others so that they know that there is a place for people with this interest in city government as well.
Go ahead, John. I was going to say, I think one of the challenges we have, I may be wrong, I think it sounds like all of you do a lot of development work. So we see any type of code we run, we're just infrastructure. So installing servers, the boring stuff. But what makes that important and difficult to find people is we like to think of ourselves as a consulting firm. And one of the reasons why in 13 years we're still only about 44 people is finding those individuals that can, knowing the technology, being able to pivot quickly and learn new things is kind of a given. But we need people with good communication skills, because our people have to talk to
hire something like 250 people for 2014 to support our strategic investments in IT. And that's on a base of about 2,500 today. And so we need a little bit of everything in terms of the technologies, but there's a more of an emphasis in things that probably many of you have, right, with digital, mobile development, analytics is a big thing, health information technology, so practice management systems, and EMRs and the like. Those are kind of hotspot areas for us, but we need some of everything. We actually have a sort of a pending crisis with COBOL skills. I mean, our COBOL people are
You gotta be kidding me, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, I
COBOL,
mean,
the comment was COBOL isn't gonna die.
it's not, but the programmers are eventually. That's
I learned COBOL.
There you go. So we need a little bit of everything. We are changing our models a lot. I mean, you have to run in a company that big. You have to run sort of a traditional IT shop, a lot of methodology and so on. But we're also doing things like acceleration labs, innovation centers. We've got an acceleration team out in Silicon Valley working alongside one of our acquisitions there. So we're definitely recognizing there's a reality that the big mothership doesn't turn on a dime. Right? You have to have sort of satellite operations to move quickly in certain areas, and that's something that we want to do more of. I'll tell you, an opportunity for all of us is there's an assumption that needs to happen somewhere besides Louisville. I think we can challenge it, but it's like, oh, that's California, right? It's like, well, actually, there's a big community here. So we got to get let out of the tower every now and then and learn more about organizations like this and others, so that we can do, an acceleration lab in Louisville, for example.
So how, Aaron, just to continue picking on you, apologies, but how you are, I think the most, sort of largest organization here, 2,500 IT staff just on service delivery, or just within all of Humana?
That's all of Humana IT associates or employees, and then they represent about a third of our total staff, the other 2/3 being partners that do onshore and offshore work, so outsourcers.
So of those 250, about how many would you anticipate could be sourced in Louisville, or does it matter sort of which parts of the organization? Is it more of a
It does vary by team a little bit, but without going deep into that, we would love for most of them to be in Louisville, and yet we expect probably 20% of them will be in Louisville because of the difficulty of recruiting and hiring here. So we're going to, by necessity, go to Dallas, Atlanta, Phoenix, Miami, Chicago. But we'd rather do it here.
What level of person are you looking for? Everything?
Most everything. We don't do a lot of like right out of college hiring. We do a little bit of that and move them around, but generally you need some experience in a large shop.
do they need to know healthcare?
No.
Steve, do you need to hire people with no education?
No. I don't even know education. We just need people that are smart.
It's interesting. I think the idea of people that can learn things is incredibly important. And I remember being told maybe 6 months ago that the reason that Ruby on Rails programmers were so prized was not because so many people were doing so much work in Ruby, but because so few people taught Ruby, it was a sign you were self-taught and you could teach yourself things and you could therefore teach yourself other things. So just as an indicator for a capability, which I thought was really interesting. So learn quickly, be flexible, communicate well. Anything else? Another theme that just came up was sort of whether or not silos exist and how to sort of pursue career development. And I would anticipate, Teresa and Aaron, you guys probably have the most sort of structured, but how do you best position yourself as an entry level associate or city employee to have a promising career path and be able to move up and beyond, and what are sort of the critical skills you're looking for to know whether people will be successful?
That's a really great question, and it's really challenging. It's one we're trying to address right now in terms of are we giving all the right skills and capability building opportunities to improve the metro government. So through my office, we've been starting to do some things that are less on the tech or data side, but more on sort of the problem solving, the critical thinking. So Lean, Six Sigma, through a partnership with Humana actually, quality engineering department, folks in metro government with Six Sigma, black belt, and green belt skill sets. As it relates to the rest of sort of the movement of folks within metro government, we're trying to figure out a way to get people to be able to float between departments and sort of get experience in different agencies across metro government, so that they understand the challenges that each of those departments face, break down sort of some of those silos. Our IT department has put service level managers out into departments to sort of work with their customers, if you will, develop that relationship, develop that communication, and help to understand how to help them better use the technology that we do have on hand and identify new technologies that we need. There's still a big question mark on career progression though, because there is, I guess the old adage in government, they need to wait for somebody to either die or win the lottery.
Well, football programs, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out ways to really do that internal development of folks and give more career opportunities.
One of the related questions is how do you stay current? Do you bring in new skills to your organization? This is for everyone. You bring in new skills. How do you ensure that existing talent in your organizations are able to have the time to spend learning new skills or have projects in which they can develop new skills? And it is such a fast-paced, pace change field.
First off, just what we do, the ability to train in the classroom setting, even professional education, is really difficult. That whole concept for us has had to change simply because we release versions that the whole change of how things work in the environment is so rapid that we're on pretty much 9 to 12 month release schedules on things like server infrastructure, database infrastructure. So, that's a window of 12 months where somebody needs to not just learn new stuff, but be very proficient at it. And where people are really valuable are the ones that are good at it before those products are released. And so what we end up doing a lot is making sure that everyone has lab time, has time dedicated during the week to do some self-study, providing those materials. It's not that we're trying to ask people to study the weekends, we're trying to dedicate the time, but it really has to be a little more informal and